Johnson's Baby presents The Sharma Show.
A couple of decades ago, it may have been considered quite a rarity, but in today's increasingly shrinking world, it is more common for people to marry into different cultures and backgrounds. As a mixed breed myself, I've often wondered how it may affect a child's upbringing and outlook to life. In this episode, we'll speak to parents of mixed marriages and find out more about their challenges on today's Pow-Wow.
It's important to agree upfront on basic things like how you bring up the child.
They were not going to be British or Indian. They were just going to be our children.
Then we'll take a sneak peek into my own upbringing as my parents share some of their own experiences.
When people ask me, how did you settle in India? I always say, actually, it's the person that matters.
And finally, a candid tete-a-tete with TV host and actress Mini Mathur.
We do everything that goes with every festival, be it Hindu or Muslim. For me and Kabir, we don't believe that children should be born to a religion.
Being the product of a cross-cultural marriage myself, this subject has always interested me. Are parenting styles different? Do spouses of different cultures have to make decisions and deal with issues that are different from those of the same culture? I spoke to a few parents who have married into different cultures to understand more about this. Beginning with you, Heather, how is it being married to someone from a very different culture?
I think it's in many ways wonderful. It opens your mind to a whole different world of experiences. I think in terms of having children, it's important to agree upfront on basic things like how you bring up the child, if religion is involved, which path you'll follow, if two countries are involved, how you will let the children, integrate both parts of their culture. As long as those conversations and clarity up front are done, then I think it's a very fulfilling and rewarding experience indeed.
Vivek, do you agree with Heather? When you first met each other, were you thinking that far ahead about how you'd bring up kids when you had them?
I think I was the one that brought it up, actually. I think we discussed religion, what schools they would go to, how the cross-cultural impact on the children would, either better them or make them worse. And so we decided that they were not going to be British or Indian. They were just going to be our children. And get the best of both the cultures.
Yeah, that's interesting. And Priya, what about you? Catholic, Muslim, how did it happen?
Right, well, we did also discuss how we're going to bring up our child before we got married. We decided beforehand that we were going to have a Catholic ceremony. And we had a court wedding and no nikah. So when you do a Catholic wedding, they request you to baptize your children. That's something we needed to discuss, and we did. And we decided that our child would be brought up Catholic. Though we do make an attempt to let him know about the other sides as well. We have spiritual people. We believe that children need to be good human beings, and that's how we bring up our son. So it's not necessarily Catholic or Muslim. Yes, because he needs to be belonging to one community, especially in this country. He is being brought up as Catholic. But I think he needs to be exposed to whatever's out there. And then at a later date, if he needs to make a decision about what he wants to do with his life, that's fine with both of us.
In-laws, how was that whole dynamic? How did you guys adjust to it all?
Actually, mine from the very beginning were very supportive. And I never felt that I was different or foreign or, they went out of their way, bent over backwards, which was fantastic. And that was great because it's always very intimidating to go and meet the in-laws for the first time. And I was a little scared, but they were wonderful.
Actually, I was a little nervous at first because they didn't say much. They were very Brit. Met my father-in-law, I had to ask, do the whole asking for her hand in marriage. And I said, I wanted to ask you, can I marry your daughter? And he was like, well, it's about time someone did. And that was the beginning.
So is the tip to get married a little later so that you don't deal with any of the
I think
cultural...
so. Yeah. I think if you're doing a cross-cultural thing anyways, it's more than just waiting for the right time. I think you have to be so open about how you live your life, especially when you have a partner who's got a different outlook and different culture. You just have to be very flexible.
And what about for you? Were your in-laws very receptive to you?
I didn't find any resistance from them. So there was more resistance from my family, which actually once they got to know him and his family and realized that I'm not going into a traditional Muslim setup, I will not have to change my name. I do not have to have a nikah. I can live my life pretty much on my own terms. For us, our upbringing has really helped us. And our son seems to be thriving in this multicultural background. I mean, he's exposed to so much. I think having a multicultural background, especially in this country helps you learn a lot of tolerance.
Yeah.
It also, helps with prejudice. They do learn a lot, especially in school. Now you have so many different cultures, communities coming together in every classroom, including expat children. So a whole new world has opened up now.
I know if you don't necessarily look very Indian, kids can get asked, and it can be quite difficult for a little child. Do your kids ever get asked, do you think?
They're very little, but I think the way it works is when we go to England, that's when they get questioned. Because they both have these sweet little Indian accents and the Indian gestures. So when we go and meet my friends who have small children, they're mesmerized by my kids' accents. They sound so Indian, but they're very fair. So they look like they could be from either place, actually.
I think in India, what happens is if you're half foreigner or a foreigner, then you're given more importance. It's the opposite, actually.
Actually,
I don't know.
you know what?
It depends. Yeah, it
I have
could
a
go either way.
friend. She is very fair. She's from Australia, so she has like white blonde hair and she's bright blue eyes. She has 4 kids, one of whom is very fair as well, looks like her. He's getting horribly bullied.
Oh, really?
Horribly bullied, and she's about to remove him from the school.
Really?
Because they're bullying him for being a foreigner. Farang, yeah.
We had actually very, very interesting discussion with the head of one of the schools of our kids about not even discriminating between vegetarian and non-vegetarian. Because they do have cases where you'll have a child saying, I don't want to be your friend because you eat meat. Have you ever found that anyone's questioned your son on his religion?
Right now, he's in the 2nd standard, so that hasn't really come up. But I do expect that it will, because he has a Hindu name, a Muslim surname, and he's a Catholic child. So I know I'm going to be in a soup in a few years' time, but I'm hoping that we will be able to chat with him enough to help him field off those questions in a bit. Of course, like you mentioned about the vegetarian and non-vegetarian, that happens in his school. If schools will take up things like this, it will really make a difference.
And in closing, are there any immediate pros and cons that come to mind for raising children in a cross-cultural family?
The biggest pro is the element of choice. I mean, you can expose them to 2 different cultures. Our kids get to travel a lot back home. They can see the differences, they can compare the differences. Right. My son says, my favorite place is Bombay, mummy, and I'm like, okay, very good. But they can really see that and learn from different cultures and different experiences. I think that's really interesting for them and their learning and development, actually.
That's interesting. And Priya, what about you?
For me, it works well. We go with the flow. We bring our child up the way we want, with the support of our parents, and we thank them for that.
On that note, it's been such a pleasure having all of you. Thank you so, so much for being on the Tara Sharma Show.
Pleasure. Thank you, Tara.
Coming up, a look into my own experiences as a multicultural child and the decisions and choices my parents made.
When people ask me, how did you settle in India? I always say, actually, it's the person that matters.
And finally, a candid tete-a-tete with Mini Mathur.
We never thought of things like religion interfering in our daily lives. It's never been a factor except a positive one.
My mom is English and my dad Indian. So I guess that makes me the product of a cross-cultural or mixed marriage. I think my sister and I got the best of both worlds thanks to the decisions our parents made. In our home, Christmas was and is celebrated with as much enthusiasm as Diwali, and visits from our Indian grandparents when we were little were as frequent as those from our English ones. However, my parents apparently made a conscious decision when they decided to have kids to bring us up to feel we belonged in the place we were living. We lived and live in Bombay, so we were brought up as any other Bombayite. We went to local schools, we did the same things as our friends in terms of activity, and we were never really made to feel foreign. By and large, we felt rooted in India. We were always very much in touch with our English roots too. And in many ways, as my mum adapted so well into India, often her ways seem more Indian than some Indians.
I came out to India in 1968, a lifetime ago. I had no idea what to expect. When I met Pratap, who was a creative person, and my decision had been very much that I always wanted to marry a writer or an actor, we managed to decide that we were going to live our lives together. And when people ask me, how did you settle in India? I always say, actually, it's the person that matters. When I'm in a taxi, and the taxi driver says, "How come you speak such wonderful Hindi?" And then I blar on, and we become friends by the end of the trip. So I've never missed any opportunity for the children to fully enjoy India.
We're all products of mixed races, and in many ways, the world has come full circle. It's a smaller world thanks to travel, shared values, communication. My parents often said, geographical proximity is often less of a sign of commonality than shared values. Although from different countries and continents, they had shared values, and hence their parenting styles were in sync.
I think today the most important part of upbringing and parenting should be inculcating acceptance and tolerance into your child. I just feel it's a huge parental role to imbibe to our children that whether you're a Hindu or you're a Muslim or you're a vegetarian or a non-vegetarian, it does not really make a difference. You have to be far more accepting, because today we hope that we want our children to be global citizens.
Rupak is also the product of a mixed marriage, his dad being Sikh and his mom Nepalese. So our kids are half Punjabi, quarter Nepalese, 1/8 English and 1/8 Jewish. Yes, my mom is half Jew. So I guess our parenting is pretty multicultural too. And I think all we aim to do is try and be good parents, tolerant of all. TV actress and host Mini Mathur has graced our screens on a number of shows. She's married to acclaimed director Kabir Khan, and they have 2 lovely children. She talks to us about how they raise their kids in a cross-cultural family. How did you feel when you first held both your little ones?
I thought I would not enjoy the moment, but I think once the baby is just put onto you, you just, everything is just, it just takes care of everything that you were stressed about or worried about. And I remember for Saira, my husband was shooting his film in New York 2 months before I delivered and 2 months after I delivered. And he flew down for 6 hours on Labor Day. And I chose to have an elective cesarean so that he could be there for her birth, which to a perfectionist like me was a killer, because here I am opting for a C-section where, it's just so that he could be there.
Wow. So Kabir, I hope you're watching this and listening, because I know that you are a huge director and really, really a great dad. But it's really interesting to see how one manages and balances when you have a dad who's so busy and traveling and stuff.
We've always sort of timed it in a way that when he's excessively busy, I've always taken a back seat, and that's the way it works for us.
So Mini, another very interesting thing is that you and Kabir are from very different cultural and religious backgrounds. How did it all happen?
We do belong to different, let's just say, religions for now, but we're very similar in our background. He's a Muslim, but he's not a practicing Muslim. He's more agnostic, atheist. I'm a conventional Hindu, and we met incidentally during a shoot that he was directing and I was hosting, and it was like the earth moved and the bells rang and all of that. We never thought of things like religion interfering in our daily lives, and thankfully we've been now married for many, many years. It's never been a factor except a positive one, because we end up really celebrating everything, and he celebrates it because I want to, not because he enjoys the whole cultural aspect of religion but not the ritualistic aspect. So we do everything that goes with every festival, be it Hindu or Muslim. So we do everything, and the kids, when they were born, thankfully nobody asked us to put on a form what religion we'd like them to be, because for me and Kabir, we don't believe that children should be born to a religion, I mean, they may not even be believers. I would like them to have faith in a superior power, which Kabir doesn't believe in, and I'm constantly mocked at home saying, oh, so God must have done this, and I'm like, please. So we respect each other's belief in whatever, a superior, power, faith, whatever. He, of course, doesn't. But the kids, they enjoy it. They look forward to every multicultural festival, and I have never had to state their religion everywhere. How you communicate about religion with your children is going to give them the courage to go and stand up to them and say, this is what I am, and if you don't get it, you go back and figure it out.
Do you feel with your kids, do you think they ever had any kind of questions about what they are or what
Tara, they're still very young. And my son's 11, my daughter's 6. What we are instilling in them is that your identity is not going to be shaped by the religion you follow. Your identity is going to be made by what your values are intrinsically, what kind of a human being you are. Are you nice to other people? Are you helpful? Are you doing good by yourself?
Right.
It's not about who you pray to. And honestly, I must say that there have been instances where other kids ask him, so are you Muslim or are you Hindu? Or so he's come and asked me, I am, what am I? So I said, you're everything. You're a humanist. Okay.
Yes.
I think it's up to the parents to tell them that this doesn't matter to us. And this is not what's going to define you. I think how you communicate about religion with your children is going to give them the courage to go and stand up to them and say, yeah, this is what I am. And if you don't get it, you go back and figure it out. I know what I am. And people assume that because I'm married to a Muslim, I'll be pro-Islam or I'll be less of a Hindu. It doesn't matter. We've given each other freedom to do what we want. I mean, Kabir has sat and done havans with my family. And I have gone and, been with all his Hyderabadi relatives being full begum. It's okay. It just makes me richer, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I think what you said really struck a chord when you mentioned that you might have different religious backgrounds and you might come from different so-called cultures, but your values are very much the same. What about people who actually don't have such a liberal background and don't have people who are so supportive? How do you think they cope with cross-cultural marriages?
Tara, I truly believe that you will only find a connection with a person who is on a similar level of belief than you are. If you are in a situation where you're from two very diverse religions or cross, or cultures, the only way to make it work is not to pass it on to your kids. You have to live with whatever you have to live with. But if all of us make a conscious effort that we're not going to pass on our beliefs and our faith to our children, you need to have them believe in a higher, to believe that,
in something,
and that something can be defined by them.
Yeah.
Or if you are, I like we just discussed, I love festivals, I love pujas, I love all of that. I make them do all of that. But then I make sure that they also do everything associated with Christmas and everything associated with Eid and with everything else. So once they're exposed to the same level of rituals about everything, I think they will be fine. And as far as coping with this is concerned, you have to promise yourself that you're not going to pass it on. So the next generation is clean of all religious dissent with each other. That's the only way we can make the world a better place, cliche or not. I think children are very open to new experiences. And I've only met children who want to change things. Everyone wants to, like my son goes and eats Gujarati food, he loves it, he loves, so you're always inquisitive about the other person's culture. And I've had, no such issues about, veg, non-veg and all that. But yeah, it's a school which doesn't allow taking non-veg for tiffins and stuff like that, which I'm okay with.
If there's anything at all you'd like to say to people who are about to be married and they're from different cultures, and any tip, anything at all?
I think we should, as mothers, just stop judging ourselves every now and then. Have I been good? Am I a witch on a broom today? Should I have done this? We keep second guessing ourselves and making ourselves, spiral into this kind of negativity. Whereas, mommyhood is one of the toughest jobs you could ever get and also the most underrated. So give yourselves a break. You've got this baby, you're giving it the best life you can. Just feel happy about it. Kids will survive. You don't have to be momzillas all the time.
That's true. So on that note, let's not be momzillas. And thank you so much, Mini. That was great.
It was fun. Thank you.
Cliched as it may sound, I believe in teaching our kids tolerance. That we are all the same in many ways, no matter where we are from. We should understand, respect, and enjoy any cultural differences. It's important in making this world a better place. And on that note, a very Merry Christmas to everyone. Next week, social life and travel after having kids. Is it non-existent?
I've come to know a completely new set of people after I've had my child.
From the time our son was 2.5 months old, we've been taking him on trips.
Do you end up losing sense of yourself after becoming a mum or dad? Then what's your little friend's name?
Lamity.
Actress Tiska Chopra on how she manages her child's social life along with her own.
Given the amount of time we spend away from her, we like to spend as much time as we can with her.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Tara Sharma Show, and keep writing in to our social media platforms and interacting with me. I'd love to hear your views on these topics and more.